Hey, so in this interview, I've got Reynold Krieg, who is a marketer who runs paid ads for guys that are looking to raise capital from accredited investors. So, if that sounds like you and you want to learn more about it or what you should be doing, or maybe it's on your horizon and you're thinking, man, am I ready for this? Reynolds is going to give you some great tips and tricks and tactics as to what you should be doing to get ready to work with somebody like him, as well as what to do if you are raising capital. So, check it out. All right. So today I've got a very special guest, Reynold Krieg, who runs a marketing agency running paid ads for investors trying to raise more capital. So we're going to get into some awesome stuff today. But Reynold, man, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we met through a mutual client almost a year ago. And I feel like we hit it off because just speaking the marketing language, understanding like, okay, there's other stuff at play here. But obviously, like running paid ads for a guy trying to raise money for real estate is super, super niche when it comes to a marketing agency. How the heck did you get into all this?
It's funny, yeah. So about 10 years ago, it was probably about 15 years ago now, I sold two companies, and we did pretty well through that. We were doing that for about 3 years. We started getting other work from acquaintances, friends, family, all that sort of stuff. One of the guys that I ended up starting to work with was a business coach. He introduced me to another guy who was in private equity for the most part. One of the companies I started working with was a company called Verivest. And what they do is more or less verify a lot of the investments that actually happen, the track record, all that stuff. You've probably seen people, they fudge the numbers. And so this company was more or less, holding these guys accountable. So I worked with them for a while, probably 3, 4 years, and I became close with the leadership team over there. From there, that dovetailed into probably 4 or 5 clients, probably within the next year or two. The guy there left. I got a couple more clients from him. Referrals, they kept coming down the pipe. It's probably been about 10 years now. We've been working with private equity, real estate funds, real estate syndications for about 10 years. And it just kind of dovetailed. I mean, you know how it is. The industry is pretty everybody knows each other. When you do a good job for one, you get referrals. So I've been doing it for a while, probably about a decade now.
Yeah. Well, and you got started, it sounds like, with somebody who knew who the guys that were the most ethical on the up and up, all that. So it's great coming in, going like, oh, I know these guys are legit. I don't have to, look behind the curtain to know, do I want to help these people? You already knew who the players were.
And one of the things was they weren't raising money themselves, so it was kind of an objective look at both sides. We were actually acquiring, the operators of, these real estate funds and syndications. So we learned a lot about them, but we also learned about like, the other side, the investors as well. So it was really cool. And, when you work with a syndication, you're only generally looking at accredited investors, right? That's all they want. They want accredited investors. In this case, we had to actually know what the operators wanted as well. So we had to know the pain points. We had to know like a lot behind the scenes there. So like you said, it was pretty interesting, not only, kind of, dipping your toe in the water, but also seeing kind of both sides and getting kind of intimate with.
Yeah. I got to ask you, what was the ecom?
Dude, so I had a husky, 13 years, and so I always played basketball. That was my thing. I played basketball, get a workout in. So I had a husky, and this dude he didn't sit still, and so he'd look at me like as a puppy, like mother effer, we got to get out there and start running. So I literally on Amazon. This was like 12, 15 years ago. I'm like, all right, you know what it was? I put a Camelback on, and it has a strap right in the center, and so I just attached the leash there, and like center of gravity right here, perfect. I'm just going to run like this. And we ran like miles at a time. Otherwise, you're running with like a leash like this, and it's completely, you're running with one arm. So anyway, I couldn't find anything. Long story short, I developed a system more or less for males that came over the top, attached here, and you could run hands free. And then same thing for females or anybody that wanted it around the waist. It was kind of like a Camelback around your waist with a leash attachment. So you could run hands free. You could put your phone in there, put your iPod in, whatever, or your headphones in and go. And then we also had a bunch of other like hands free leashes. So it was pretty cool. It was cool. The poor dude died, and so it was, at that point, he was the mascot. He was kind of the driving force, and so we ended up selling it right after that.
You lost your brand ambassador.
Pretty much, man. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he had Instagram. I mean, he had more Instagram followers than. I mean, I think he had like 30,000 Instagram followers. So yeah, yeah. So when that was a driving force, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, Griffey died." And you know what I mean? I'm like, I can't keep posting on his account at this point. But it was driving a lot of business. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, dude, e-com is a different game. It's honestly not my favorite, but it's a different game. But it was fun while we did it.
Yeah, what were some of the differences you noticed, like making that transition, going from e-com into working with Verivest and then starting to help guys raise capital through accredited investors? Where were you like, okay, this is the same, but holy cow, this is different?
Well, the biggest problem, for example, and this is, I guess it's kind of a similarity, but like for physical products, and like I guess there's digital as well, but like for physical products, like one of the things that we had a problem with was we actually made these really, really high-end products. And we had them in like all the dog stores in the local area, whatever. And so when people came in and they were a premium product, they were like $40 for a leash, so it wasn't cheap. And this was like 10, 15 years ago. So when you'd feel it, you'd feel the neoprene. It was like three millimeters. It was pretty thick. You'd see like the two layers of like neoprene. So it's really, really high quality. And so you would immediately be like, oh, $40, piece of cake, high quality, love it, no problem. Now, when you're on Amazon or you're on Shopify and you look here and you look there at a product that's like, $20, $40, and the one's a little bright, and you're like, oh, the color's, okay there, but like this one's $20. I'll just get that one. It's really tough, I think, to showcase these products, especially if they're more commoditized, you know what I mean? To
Mm.
showcase, like, this is why it's worth that. And this was almost predating video as ubiquitous as it is now. So I think, back then it was just a little bit more challenging because it was almost all imagery that we were using, and then like testimonials and some, social media, which we did a great job with. But now with video, if I was doing it now, I would just do video first all day and we just showcase how it's different. But back then it was a lot different than it is today. Ultimately, I think it's hard to show. It's easier to sell things in person as opposed to this like two-dimensional screen. And so, that's one of the things that, like, in the syndication world, we don't have that problem. You know what I mean? Like, the biggest thing that we need to showcase is generally like, just give me the facts, give me the objective KPIs of the syndication fund, and then also like, is the owner, is the operator, is the person in charge that's front facing, like, are they good on camera? Can they command trust? You know what I mean? But that's a different story. And you can coach that up. You know what I mean? But that's kind of where I would see the differences. I actually think the syndication world, what we're doing now, I actually think it's easier than the ecom stuff.
Mm. Because there's less competition, or because it's a more straightforward playbook, less noise?
Well, I mean, kind of the thing I was just talking about, which is like, I think there's less variables as well. Like when somebody
Mm.
goes to buying decisions, I just think it's a little, it depends on what the product is. It's hard to talk, across the board. I'm just talking from my experience in our products. I just think it's easier to get people to say like, yeah, let me put my information in. Sure. Let me get here, lead, piece of cake, right? I'm interested in learning. I'm interested in learning more. It's difficult to get people on the phone, but especially like when I'd say 80% of our phone calls come from like somebody picking up the phone when they get a lead, calling them, and then they just pick up, right? That's not that difficult. Whereas e-com is like you have to get them to pull out their credit card. And a lot of times from social media, not as hard, but a lot of times, as you know, like when you're scaling, it's Facebook. And Facebook I always call like an impulse click. They weren't looking for you. They may be in your demo. They weren't looking for you. And so now you
Mhm.
have to convince them in a heartbeat from an ad they just saw, pull out their credit card. I just think that's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. You brought up something that I want to ask you about, which is the trust component.
Yep.
How, because like you said, through a screen, how does an operator present themselves authentically, but in a way that is going to build trust with their audience, right? Like it's a tactic, but we don't really want it to be a tactic because we want it to be natural and organic and authentic.
Yeah.
So, like, how do they actually do that? How do you recommend, or what do you see working that is allowing operators to build trust with investors that are cold, that don't know them from Adam?
I mean, you know Gary Vee, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So Gary Vee says like jab, 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 right hook. Right. It's like
Sure.
give value, give value, give value, give value. Ask for the sale. You know what I mean? Like, and so like the problem you see nowadays, and this is and like when they contact me, it's like, they're ready to roll. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not gonna wait like 6 months and be like, hey, by the way, maybe build up that organic social, put some video together. Like, let's do it. So it's challenging to like say like temper it. Like let's temper it. Let's build your brand. Let's build like maybe like you as the operator. Let's build your LinkedIn a little bit. Like let's put out some products, some information on LinkedIn that's not like selling and just helpful, right? I don't know about you. It's like, you know, in the real world, like why do you trust somebody? Like nobody that's gonna come up to me and try to sell me today on a cold call. Am I gonna be like, yeah, I trust this dude? Because like you're probably calling everybody, you know? The people you trust are the people that actually give you value. And so like I don't know about you, like what I do and what I try to like have the clients do is the way that I'll buy from somebody, especially cold, I'll see the ad, I'll follow them on organic social. So it's Instagram, probably not Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn generally, right? And when you start following them at arm's length, they're not hitting you up. I follow on my terms. Whenever I want to jump on, I'll see your stuff. If they're providing value, if they're good at what they do, if I think that they're going to be helpful, generally it's like a couple months down the line where like I'm ready to roll.
Hmm.
I'll just go direct to the site, you know, and book a call. And that's generally, I think, the natural progression. You know, when people come in and they talk to me, they're like, all right, we need this to happen tomorrow. How quickly can it happen? You know what I mean? Or they're like, I'm too busy, or I want to pay to play. Or the problem with a lot of this stuff is the operator doesn't ever want to do social, or they don't want to do videos. Or a lot of these guys are just like, keep me up with calls. Like, let's do it. You know what I mean? And so I think, like, it's really challenging when you hide behind static images or use actors, which we do a lot. I think the easy way to open it up is really to let them know who you are, which, dude, some of these guys do a great job because, like, you know, they're a lot of these guys' funds, like, there's no different than anybody else. Like, the differentiator is them, and they're really good at being, like, authentic, and people just trust them. I had a client, like, recently, you know, he was just like, the guy was like, I don't really, like, love it, but I trust you, so we'll throw in some money. And I think the guy was like, I think he was said something like, yeah, we'll throw in like a little amount. And it was like, I think it was like three quarter of $7 million. He's like, yeah, we'll just do a little bit. So,
We'll try you
uh,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it works. I mean, it works, man.
Yeah, I think that's some of that, like, are they betting on the jockey or the horse type stuff, right? Like we were talking about this recently with a client where do you present your unique ability within the business or your unique ability of just you as a person? Right? Because I think so many guys get so laser focused on, I need to present what makes us different and our offering unique and what makes our team the best and all this. And it's like, there is a level of just building trust with someone where they just kind of want to know who you are and that
Absolutely.
they don't want to know who you are as an operator. They just want to know who you are. And I think this does two things. One, it gets people to buy in for who you are and makes it easier for people to decide if they know, like, and trust you, but it also deters some of the people because I think it's a bad strategy to say, hey, I'm trying to raise money from everybody and anybody instead of like, no, no, I'm looking for the people that are a good fit for me. And I think a lot of operators are almost too hungry to raise capital that they're not willing to say, you're not a good fit. Like, I love asking operators the question of like, hey, when's the last time you turned down an investor? Like, when have you turned somebody away because they weren't a good fit for you? I mean, they're like, oh, never. I'm like, sounds like you're taking anybody's money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you can raise a lot of capital from the wrong people and have an absolute cluster on the back end. So up front, being really specific on like, who do we want to do business with? No,
Yeah.
no different than any other kind of business, right? Of saying like, who is our avatar? Who's our customer? Who do we want to do business with? Who do we want to raise capital from? And I think the easiest way to kind of match up those puzzle pieces to say, hey, we're a good fit is you got to lead with it and say, hey, here's who I am. And I don't know about you, but I don't see this a lot from operators. They typically lean into, here's who we are as a company, but not, hey, here's who I am.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but like a lot of these people are like, again, they're really trustworthy people. I tell a lot of my clients, I'm like, dude, you're really good on video. Like, you should put yourself out there. Like, you convey trust. Like, when I see you, I talk to you, I'm like, you're not lying to me. You're going to do everything you can to return, money for the investors. And again, I think it comes down to old school. Like, hey, well, I can just pay my way to, get those leads teed up for me. And I'm like, you can, but they're going to cost 30% more doing it this way. So it really comes down to like what they want to do, the strategy they want to employ, and like more or less the resources they have.
Yeah. Okay. So what's like some tactical stuff you could share with us? Like what works for somebody to build trust? I heard you mention, actually operator being on camera for one, but what else works in terms of building trust so that they can demonstrate that to the audience?
Well, I mean, like I said, like the life cycle is you come off of like generally the life cycle for us is you come off an ad, or maybe like you find them organically, or LinkedIn or Instagram. So the first thing is obviously making sure like you're a leader in the space, you're a thought leader, right? And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it's
Mm.
true. I mean, a lot of these people are like, they're coming up with new, clever, unique ideas. And it's one thing when it's like, who's the Cody Sanchez? Like she can talk about like a wide range because all she does is like business stuff. So she can talk about like all kind of stuff. But for example, she was one of the people I was like, who is this chick? I was a little skeptical. I was like, who's this chick? I followed her, followed her, followed her. I'm like, oh, she knows her stuff. Like she could. And she's not asking you for money. She's not asking anybody. She's just slowly building her base. And she knows it in the long run, that's going to win the game. So, again, it's just like whatever you can do to, I think, credibility. And a lot of that could be, dude, it could be as simple as like, hey, by the way, here's an article in the industry that's kind of relevant to our, to what we do. Let me just throw my opinion on it. You know what I mean? Like, here's my thoughts. It doesn't have to be a lot of these guys are like, I don't have the time. I'm like, dude, it's literally like it could be as easy as like 30 minutes a week. It doesn't take that long. But people in their head, they think it's gonna, I don't have any more time. It's gonna take like 3 more hours. Dude, you can do it, again, you could do it on a quick low level in like 30 minutes, like, per week. It's not hard. But that's what I would do, man. I would start just like getting some content out there. If you're comfortable in front of the camera, we have a couple clients that are like, Brian, I'm becoming more comfortable in front of the camera the more I do it. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? And soon they start, getting overly confident. You're like, did that work? I'm like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But I would just, you just got to get out there. You got to, present your ideas. You got to showcase that you know what you're talking about, more or less. And a lot of that's not just the content itself. A lot of it's just consistency, man.
Hmm.
Showing up all the time. Everybody thinks like, oh, I didn't close this guy in the first week. Dude, people are busy, man. You think like all of us are just going to sit there? Like, how many times do you
Yeah.
come up with an ad and just convert? I never do. So it's more or less it's play the long run, be patient, put out good content, treat people well. And for these guys, like yes, I would recommend be on camera as much as possible, especially if you're good on camera and you can command trust without a doubt.
Yeah. I always bring this up when it comes to the actual follow up and like sales side of the raise is, man, we're thinking about them way more than they're thinking about us. And so
Yes.
like the frequency that we have to stay in front of these people with is massive and you're way
Yes.
underestimating it.
Yes.
You touched on something with getting comfortable on camera. I've got
Yeah.
a client right now who is just stressing about it. He's just like, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, guess what, dude? Like, this may be the different. Like, we could break down the numbers and say, hey, this is what your
Yeah.
lead cost
Yes.
is if you're on camera. This is what your lead
Yep.
cost is if you're not on camera. Does
Yes.
that sound like a worthwhile problem or a worthwhile
Yes.
skill to get good at? And so we literally have a deal where he sends me 3 videos a day. I said, "Hey, the goal here is not that they're perfect, not that they're flawless. It's just that you're checking the box." Because my belief is that if you just put in the reps, you can't help but get better over the course of 2, 3 months.
Yep.
And so he's between raises right now, and I say, "Hey, just send me 3 a day." By the time the next raise comes around, you're going to be so much better on camera. You're going to be so much better at turning this thing around. You're going to pick up on little stuff of like, "Oh, I'm out of frame here. I should hold
Yep.
it a little higher." Like,
Yep.
"Oh, I don't like how I sounded there." I'm
Yep.
like, record the 3 videos, send them to me to show me that you did it, but then just watch them back. And like just the feedback loop you're going to get from that of doing it every day, you're going to be
Totally.
so much better 3 months from now.
Totally. I had a client do the same thing to me this morning. Same thing. How was this? I gave him feedback. Great. Thank you so much. Awesome. Perfect. You know what I mean? And well, a lot of times, like if they're willing to do it, it's just like, hey, here's the feedback, and a lot of them are like, cool, that's all I needed. And they get in the habit of doing it, like you're talking about. They get good at it, and because here's the reality, dude. It's like I always tell, like when a client comes on, like we do an intake. I try to take as much knowledge as possible. But at the end of the day, like I can create a script. We can get actors, but nobody is gonna actually know the material. Nobody is gonna be able to sell it like the person that's actually running the company, right? So like if they can get on and they can spit it on a video, concise 30 seconds, dude, no one's doing it better than that. And especially if they're the one that's like, hey, by the way, you're gonna talk to me too. It's perfect. So there's like that part where they practice and they get good at it. And there's also the part where you're like, okay, you just gave me 5. I'm going to run them. And then we're going to come back and talk about the feedback. You know how like you thought this one was good? Well, this is actually what I think probably happened. either the lighting wasn't good or maybe your hook was terrible or whatever it was. And then
Hmm.
we feed that back. And then they know next time going forward, oh, last time I did this, I got to make sure the hook's awesome because the content was great, but nobody watched past 3 seconds. Or they're like, oh, dude, like I realized like the background was terrible and it was just blurry and whatever it was, you know what I mean? So there's like the getting the video done here, like, internally feedback before it gets there. And then there's also like after it actually happens. And there's so many different variables you could look at in video, dude. So many different variables. I mean, a lot of the clients, think they kill this video. The problem is they call it a hook. It's like the first 3 seconds. You know what a hook is, right? Yeah. And like they don't know, like, dude, the average watch time on the video, if it's like literally 30 seconds, is 3 seconds, meaning everybody leaves before 3 seconds. So when they're like, hi, I'm blah, 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 and it's like 4 seconds in, they're like, God, like, tell me why, tell me why I should listen to you. And then maybe introduce yourself after or at the end or whatever it is. But like, you got to get to the point. That's why the hook is so important.
Yep. Yeah. I gave this feedback to a couple of guys recently where I said, figure out like the ends of the spectrum. There's a point where you are talking too slow, and there's a point where you're talking too
Yes.
fast.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
take your, quote unquote script. I don't love the idea of a script. I think of it like check boxes. It's like, hey, I got to hit these 3 bullet points in the course of this 30-second video. And so it
Yes.
just helps them kind of riff a little easier, but do it in a way, record it once where it's too slow. Record it once where it's too fast. And
Yeah.
now you have the ability to go, oh, okay, here's how I slow down and here's how
Yep.
I speed up. I call
100.
it like, it's like the Goldilocks method. You ever like, do you play golf?
Yeah, of course.
So I do this when I putt. So I go like, okay, I look at the hole and I go, all right. And I take a practice stroke and I go, okay, that's going to blow it by. That's way too hard. And then I go, okay, what would be too soft? What would be not enough that wouldn't get it there? I'm like, okay, that's too soft. And now somewhere in between those two is probably the feel that I'm going for. Right. And
Yeah.
so it's the same idea here is like, what's too fast? What's too slow? Okay. Now we know how to kind of bring it back. Same thing with, I call it talking with your lips versus talking with your teeth, talking with your tongue, like just different ways that you can enunciate and pause and speed up. Like, go watch a pastor speak from stage and like see how they enunciate certain things and raise their voice up and down. Like, I think there's some real tactical
Powerful.
ways where guys can just practice to start to realize, like, oh, I do this naturally. I just don't realize I'm doing it.
Yes, yes. Remember, like this is the best case scenario where somebody is like willing to do this. In most cases, I would say they're not.
Yeah.
We're getting
But
like
I
we're
think we
getting
both agree this is a problem worth solving because I mean, you've got the data here. If a guy's running static images and a guy is willing to be on camera, and even
without that.
even if he's average on camera, what's the return difference? Like, is that guy seeing lower ad costs?
Well, I mean, we have one of the accounts, and I would not say this is normal, but like this the beauty about marketing is like the product is killer, the marketing will be killer. Like one of the videos we have going for us, and it's a great offering. The video is literally, dude, getting leads at $8 a lead, like it's killing it. The static ads, first of all, Facebook won't even run them because Facebook's like, we're just gonna go all to the video. We're just gonna go all to the video. But the static ads are probably two and a half like that. They're probably $20, which is still amazing. Nobody gets $20 leads. Again, this product, this company's killing it. What I would say is the alternative is in between, which we do a lot, is you have founder-led video up top, most effective, trust. This is who I'm talking to. This is who's building the fund. This is whose idea is the architect of it. Then you have the actors, right, in a video. And that's where we script. Because the actors, I'm gonna be like, hey, by the way, hit on these bullet points. And they're like, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? So we'll have the founders, the actors doing the videos, and then below that static. Well, actually, below that we'll have GIFs, which we like to use, and then
Mm,
below that we'll use static ads. Yeah, but I mean, dude, it's like, I mean, like again, when we first talk to clients, the first question is like, are you comfortable doing videos? Can you do them? Yes, no. Don't want to do them? Don't have time? Probably definitely won't do them. We're gonna make scripts and get actors. Because if you just do it, the other problem is, and this is tactical, is a lot of these guys now, the cheapest and best way to do it is Facebook lead forms. Well, the problem with the Facebook lead form versus the traditional way going to a landing page is when you went to a landing page, there's a video on there. You have longer attention span. They'll watch like a minute video and then they'll read the whole page. So like, all right, I kind of get it. I know what I'm signing up for. When they're in a Facebook lead form, they just see one image and they put their information in. So they're going to be cold quick as hell. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Uh, and so you got to follow up. And also, they don't know anything. What if your ad just says like 10 to 14% returns? Like they're like, cool. like, what's it about? They have no idea. So they're less likely to jump on a call and they go cold quicker, which is why the video is so important. Because if you pair both of those, at least they know a little bit more about it to do the Facebook lead form, which makes the video all the more important.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on this? Because I often find I have to sometimes convince operators that it's okay to have higher lead cost
Yes.
if we're getting higher quality leads.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is the constraint here, because I'm more of a process operations guy, the constraint is going to be on your IR team and how quick can we call them back and how many times can we follow up with them. So I look at the two biggest metrics I think matter, and we've talked a little bit about this, is that response time, how long until we're calling the lead after they submit, and then touch points per lead. How many times am I actually contacting this lead over the course of a week, 2 weeks, 30 days? Because I think there's a point of diminishing return. If the sweet spot is 12 to 15, there's maybe a diminishing return at 20 where we don't really see it get any better after 15. And at 20, it doesn't really matter. But there's also a point in time where it's like, we're not even giving ourselves a shot. We got a new lead in the door. We called them once. They didn't answer. They didn't call us back. So we're just going to move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. And I think that's a dumb strategy, but guys get so hung up on lead cost and they don't look at this quality metric to say, hey, if my constraint is my IR team and they can't make that many dials per day, well, I don't want to flood them with leads that they can't reach out to. And so it's
Yep.
actually better for me to have marketing do some of the heavy lifting and filter
Yes.
these people out, because it's easier for me to ramp up and ramp down the marketing spend versus I can't just go hire another IR guy tomorrow, get him up to speed, think he's going to do a great job. It's going to take me a couple of weeks before that's a reality. And so what are your thoughts there when it comes to kind of balancing? Yeah, we want to keep costs down, but we also want high quality. We don't want low quality leads.
Yeah, so it's a good point. So a lot of this actually is more like your arena, which is the variable here is like, what's your follow-up structure? What's your process look like? Because
Sure.
if you have a sales team, and I have some clients like this, they're like, dude, we'll take anything. If they have money, if they're worth $1 million, throw them, send them in. We'll take them because we're just gonna call them and call them and call, hit them, text them, whatever. And that's great. That's perfect, right? And that you would probably know, they would probably know the sweet spot. It's going to be within the first couple days. It dramatically drops off after 72 hours. Like, I always tell people if you don't hit them up in the first 5 minutes, they're probably gone. I mean, especially if you talk about like one of those guys that just saw an image. They're like, I saw an image. I put a Facebook form through. If you have to, like somebody says like, yeah, well, I'm going to follow up with them tomorrow. I'm like, tomorrow they won't remember you, or they might, but you're going to be one of 8 people that they put through. They're not, you know what I mean? So like, there's response times, and then again, I think the variable here is the follow up. If they have a sales team, dude, throw them as much as possible. If they don't, a lot of these guys don't. It's single operators, small teams. Then yeah, we become more picky. We put more questions in the form, or the form on the page, or the form in Facebook,
Mhm.
so that we really only send them kind of cherry pick, like, kind of perfect leads that they can follow up with. But honestly, like, again, these guys are busy, man. It's like, it is one of the challenging things is, especially with the smaller teams, is, I mean, think about it. They're doing a million things, and all of a sudden they're like, "Dude, I got a lead. I got to call this guy." You know what I mean? What if they had another call set up? You know what I mean?
Right.
No, it's challenging, but the variable that you really have to kind of work around on the marketing side is, what does that look like on the back end? Because that's how you're gonna have to change your strategy.
Yeah. What metrics do you feel like are the data points that everybody needs to be measuring?
So, I mean, on the front end, it's cost per lead coming through. And that's originally like, 8 years ago, like, oh my God, that's your cost per lead, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at that. And then it's like, okay, let's look at the cost per accredited lead. Like, let's get, like we
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
like pretty much like a marketing, qualified lead, if you will. That's,
Yeah.
all right, looks good to me. And then it's almost like the, sales qualified. So they get on a call, cost per sales qualified lead, or cost per down funnel lead, we call it sometimes. And you know what, maybe in between, what you look at obviously is cost per meeting book. That's a big one. So like the two big ones we'll look at is, like, this is to your point, like cost per accredited lead, cost per meeting booked. And sometimes, depending on the campaigns, the ad creative, you'll get a lower cost per accredited lead, but a higher cost per meeting booked. And there's a couple variables that may influence that. But that, at the end of the day, generally, it's like you look down funnel, as the operative metric, especially if you have more scale and you have more data coming through, and you're looking at kind of the variables and the campaigns. You're saying, what do I scale? What do I not scale? You look down So like at the end of the day, the operative metric that we're using today, in this account at this time is, meetings book. And that's where you kind of drive the strategy.
Yeah, because this is where some of the marketing I think can almost work against you. If you create too much curiosity, you create too much intrigue, you're really good at getting people to click on the lead form and ask for more information, but they're
Yeah.
not actually the people that are going to answer the phone.
Yeah. Without a doubt. That's why, like, if you go into Facebook and you look at the lead form every single time, so we'll put like 4 or 5 questions, and Facebook's like, you might know, they throw an error message like, you might not want to do this. This is going to restrict a lot of your people. We're like, yes, that's what I wanted to do.
That's the point
So,
here.
yeah, that's the point. You know what I mean? But like back in the day, a lot of people didn't use the lead forms because they were so low quality. And I still think, again, generally on the scale compared vis-a-vis landing pages, they're still going to be lower quality because they didn't get that much information from you, but they're super streamlined, and that's why people use them.
Yeah. Yeah, we've touched on this a little bit already, but like the attention span is so short, and it's so hard to get people to actually pay attention, to then follow through, to know that you're going to have a quality conversation. One of the things that we've done, and we've done this for some other people, not specifically just real estate, but I see the value of it for guys raising money, is, and I can't remember if we've talked about this or not, but in your ad set, actually going down at the very bottom, it's like you got to open up a new little, drop down of like other options, and you can select Wi-Fi only. And we've seen where you get a quality uptick because people that are on Wi-Fi are going to be at home, at work. They're not going to be standing in line at Starbucks with no audio, just flipping through. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll click on this. Boom, go.
Yeah.
And they have
Yeah.
no idea what they just hit. And then when you go Wi-Fi only, now we know at least there's maybe a little bit more attention span coming into play. Have you guys played with this at all? Or is there any other factors that you say, hey, this is kind of like a best practice to get better attention out of somebody?
Yeah, I mean, so you can slice and dice in like the old school way. Like when we first started doing stuff like 12, 15, we were doing Facebook ads. I think we started doing it like 15 years ago, whatever. The name of the game was very manual, which was like, all right, let's look into the filters, male, female, age segments, blah, blah, blah. And you'd be like,
Yeah, yeah.
females aged 34 to 45, they crush it. So
Who
then
was
you'd
who
set,
was that guy? There was a guy that used to make the Facebook ad manager how-to videos, and that was his whole thing, was like ad sets by gender in every like 5-year age range.
yeah. I mean, we used to do it, dude. There was
Mhm.
software actually we would use to break it up. So some of our initial campaigns would have like 50, different campaigns. And the funny thing is, we weren't there, you weren't even spending that much, but it's like so segmented. So you'd run it, and all of a sudden you'd be like, "Oh, that's females living in Idaho. They're 35 to 40. They crush it. And you double down on it.
Yeah.
You can still do that. You can still figure out those segments. A lot of times, obviously, it's like, oh, males. Oh, males over 50 with money. Like, oh, who would have thought? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, and so it's not. There's some insights in there. There's definitely some shortcuts. Like one of the things is like you can look at placements, like the audience network. Audience network is more a lower quality placement, and so you'll see a lot of spam or
Yeah,
higher
not a
cost.
lot of investors on Candy Crush.
No, 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 no. I mean, you never know. Things never surprise me at this point. I swear to God. You used to be well, you used to have to slice and dice. Now the way that Facebook looks at it, and I was just talking to an employee about this. If the more you restrict the audiences, the more that they're going to increase the CPM, which increases the cost per click, which then most likely increases the cost per lead. So you don't generally want to do that. Now, if something's bleeding, yeah, cut it. Like we'll cut audience network a lot of times. It's just not worth it. Uh, but Facebook will, depending on like you set a goal. You're like, I want the goal, I want the leads, and I want the lowest cost, right? That's generally what you say. Facebook will then go and slice and dice those segments for you. And so you'll look at it. If you look at like a pie chart, if you look at a chart of it, you'll see that like the highest, might be like Facebook feed is like the biggest segment. You know what I mean? And it's 50 plus and blah, blah. But you're going to still see they're testing, whatever. I guess, what is it, 3G or 5G, whatever it's called, like cellular network, right? They're still
Mhm.
testing it, but you might notice the volume's lower because Facebook, probably like you, has noticed that the costs are higher. So they're just not going to serve to that placement or to other segments that don't work. So they're still going to serve it, but they're doing a lot of heavy lifting. Whereas like 10 years ago, dude, a lot of it was like slice, dice, analyze. You'd be like, yes, I found a gold nugget. Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you have to double down on it. But it's a little easier now, the way that they do it.
All right. Well, we could nerd out on this stuff, but I feel like that's probably not as valuable to the guy that's trying to raise money. He's like, I'm never going to touch the ad manager. I don't care. So, what's the best practice when it comes to the creative side that guys should be leaning into? Whether is it just them getting on camera, throwing spaghetti at the wall and going, "Hey, I don't need to know what's going to work. I just need to make 20 variations and then let's just refine based on what does work?" Or what does the actual operator need to do in your eyes to tee themselves up to have a better shot?
Well, I mean, we talked about a SWOT analysis before
Mhm.
before we came on.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that everybody has to do, like whether I think you do this consciously or you do this kind of behind the scenes, is, when you're setting up in marketing, the question is like, okay, who are we? What do we do well at? Where are the competition? What's the competitive landscape? Like, where do we fit in? And you kind of find your little niche. Like, this is what we're really good at. And you kind of try to double down on that. And so, like, you really hone in on that with the operator, right? And like I said, they will always know better than anybody else. Here's what we're good at. Here's where we fit in. Here's the angles we should go after. And so, based on those, like we talked about, we either set up scripts if they really want to do scripts or talking points, and they'll hit on those, right? And then, depending on where you are in the marketing life cycle, like in the beginning, we'll set up more ubiquitous, kind of broad. Hey, by the way, here's who we are. Here's what we offer, and here's why you should listen to us. Blah blah blah. As we start spending more and scaling more, generally, what we'll do is start setting the creatives up for avatars. So, like the older 50-year-old plus guy, like he's gonna have a different, like, I'm not trying to be super risky here, like blah blah blah. So you sell him different. So you create different scripts for him or different talking points to talk to him. For somebody like a lot of the guys now, everybody's like, we want to hit the tech bros. They got all the money up in San Francisco. But like you're not gonna talk to them the same as like the 50-year-old guy down here in like, Newport
Mm.
Beach. So what we
So
really do is like,
you're actually creating both sets of creatives with slightly different scripts, maybe even pacing,
yes.
and allowing Facebook to serve it and assuming that algorithm wise, they're going to be able to get it to the right people because that audience is going to interact with it better.
Yes. So before we get there, though, that this is going to be a V2. The first thing we're going to do is like, let's get you out there. Let's build your account. You got to
Mhm.
get some equity with Facebook, build up the data so you can feed it into the algorithm, right? So that's going to be V1. Just get some good videos that are more ubiquitous. V2, when you have some
Do you
scale,
do anything with organic in there? Like, do you recommend, hey, while doing that, we also need to be building up some of the organic content? Or
I mean, I
is
recommend
that
it.
asking too much?
I recommend it, but it doesn't mean they do it. Like I said,
Sure.
listen, I'm happy if they're just like, yeah, man, I'll film some videos. I'm like, that's a win.
That's probably where the jab comes in better, right? Is like, hey, build up some jabs on organic so that we can run the right hooks on paid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if listen, if I was setting up my own fund, what I would do is I go to LinkedIn, just here we go. I'm gonna pepper. Here's my thoughts. I'm gonna pepper, 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 pepper. I'd probably do it for like 3 months, maybe 6 months, something like that. I do it enough that people knew I wasn't trying to sell them. Same thing on Instagram, right? Get behind the scenes, get behind the camera, talk a little bit about like the industry, your thoughts, all that sort of stuff. And it's really hard, I think, the first couple videos when you're like, what am I talking about? And then all of a sudden you kind of get in a frame of mind where you're like, you see something on Instagram, you see some news, and you're like, oh shit, that'd be a good piece of content. I'll just spit on that. I'll get my thoughts on that. So it becomes easier. I build that stuff up and then I go to the paid, right? And I continued to do it while I was doing the paid, but I'd start some equity there, right, with people, especially so like when you spill over from your ads onto there, they can follow you. There's some stuff they know you're not brand new. Cause like that's another thing, like they can click on your ads and it used to matter more, but you can either have them drop off. Oh, these guys have started drop off. Or, and that's fine because that we kind of baked that into the scenario. Or you can have the social media amplify your, so and complement your paid efforts. And that's kind of I think where like the beauty kind of lies is having them kind of teeter back and forth because the ads I think most people come at like with like arm's length. Like I don't know about this. Like what is this? But when they pop over to Instagram, they're like, he's been doing this for like 2 years. Like this guy's been doing this content for 2 years. Like this guy's like he has a following. He's saying some cool stuff. Like it really works. I think it really works well. But again, I'll tell you, I'm just happy if they're willing to do some content. Like just anyway, I'm happy with that.
What are your thoughts or what's your approach for retargeting? Because there's something to be said for letting the algorithm cook and do its thing, but manual retargeting, what's your thoughts on, targeting? So when I used to run ads, we used to do this where we would actually have separate ad sets for engagement. So it was people who had hit our page. So let's say it's Instagram, people who had engaged with our Instagram page in the last 3 days,
Yep.
people who had engaged in the last 3 to 7 days,
Yep.
7 to 14, 14 to 30, and then it was like 30 to 90, 90 to 180, 180 to 365. And then you could actually split out the budget for
Yeah.
each one. So you could hit people hard in the
Yeah.
first couple of days.
Yeah.
But it was literally just based on engagement. It wasn't based on anything other than, hey, I know you know who I am. And it allowed you to kind of like break that, what's that phrase? Break the third wall. So we would actually record ads that said, hey, I know you've seen my stuff like a dozen times in the last
Yes.
week,
Yes.
because we would measure frequency and we had thresholds we were trying to stay at. So then it allowed you to kind of almost like interact a little bit more. And like at our 30-day mark, we had some ads that would say, hey, it's been 30 days since you looked at my page, engaged with our website. You haven't done anything. So I'm going to start pulling back. Like, if you are interested, please reach out to us, comment, engage, DM, whatever the next like call to action was. But you could almost kind of break that third wall with some of this like manual retargeting. What are your thoughts just on retargeting in general, or maybe best practice when it comes to high net worth individuals and how we should be going about this raising capital?
I mean, retargeting in general, again, I was talking about earlier. It's like we have to remember this isn't. It's on Facebook. They weren't looking for you. You happen to come up in their feed. It's always right audience, generally wrong time, right? So, and you were talking about like on cellular data. I always talk about like people are. I'm guilty of this. I'm in my car looking through Instagram. I'm like I'm not filling out a form. You know what I mean? Like, granted, I shouldn't be driving, but sometimes you're at a stoplight, whatever. You're in an elevator, like
You're
people
not
are.
at a stoplight. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We're not going to incriminate you. Stop. You're at the drive-through at In-N-Out.
I was actually texting a client earlier, and there was a cop behind me. I was like, I'll have to resume this message in a second. But anyway, so I mean, like people are busy, dude. It's like crap. Now I don't remember where we were. Where were we at?
You were saying right audience, wrong time.
Yeah, so retargeting. I mean, more or less like retargeting always on Facebook. I mean, we'll generally do like a 20% budget on retargeting. And it sounds like we used to do what you do is like the old school, like, let's segment by 3, 7, whatever.
Yep.
You have
Yep.
like every day, every couple of days, I got something else. Lead magnet, this, that, case study, blah, blah. We don't do it like that as much anymore with these lead forms. And that's kind of the playbook on a lot of the stuff we do. On the landing page stuff, again, because they're more qualified, they've gone through stuff. A lot of them will do top 10% the time on site. If they watch the video, so they're more qualified, we'll do some retargeting to them. We don't always do retargeting on lower volume accounts because, like I said, if I'm think about the one that I was just talking about, like the guy's getting $8 leads. It's like, it's cheaper for me to just go try to find somebody else for $8. You know what I mean? That I already paid the money to you. Let me try to convince you to come back. At the lower volumes, it's easier to just go find new people. When we get into the higher volumes, we always bake it in. We always bake it in. Or if the offering is harder to understand, or life cycle, we think, we'll always bake it in. But on the lead form, sometimes again, depending on the budget. If it's a low budget, we might not always do it. Now, the easy thing you can do with Facebook nowadays, which is cool for the Facebook lead form, is you can do like, if we're watching a video, I can do like, you watch like 75% of the video. And I'm like, okay, he stuck around for a while. Like I can retarget that. And then also I can say he attempted to open the form, but he abandoned the form and didn't fill it out. He was qualified. He was interested. He didn't come. And so, like you said, there are some people that are just like, listen, the form takes 3 seconds. You don't have to go to a landing page, watch an 8-minute video, put your information in. It takes 3 seconds. There's some people you don't want. If they weren't willing to even open it up, that's why the algorithm works, because they're like, exclude people like that. And they're like, oh, let's follow more people that actually filled it out or opened it or clicked it. So in some cases, we'll do retargeting heavily. In other cases, depending on budget, we'll do it light or we won't do it.
Guy's just getting started and maybe doesn't have a big social media presence. Would you recommend, let's assume budget, maybe, it's not unlimited, but he's not a small budget guy. Would you recommend he allocate a portion to just brand building, just becoming omnipresent to where you can create some leverage potentially? I guess what I'm saying is you're almost kind of creating some organic presence via some paid presence to help build brand or reputation, make him omnipresent when he's just getting started and maybe is a little more unknown in the market?
Again, best case scenario, 100%. Like I said, I would do that. By all means, do most people? Do you have to? No. No. I mean, do people get started? I always tell people, like, you can get your feet wet for a couple grand. Like, you don't get a lot of data, and sometimes you have to wait a little longer to be more patient to get it in and start optimizing, all that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. But like to get started, like, yes, if you can and you're willing to, and you got the resource and the time, let's build organic. Because again, your product is going to sell you or you're going to sell you. And if you're not willing to sell you, you're already chopping yourself, right? Then the product has to sell itself. And as we know, not every product sells itself. And if it does, great. But dude, click on one ad of a real estate syndication and you will get 40 of them. So it's really hard for your product to stand out. Facebook's so good now that if you do parking lots, you click on a parking lot, investment syndication, you get 50 other parking lot ones. So it's really hard to just be like, here are my KPIs, like here's my fund, and then you get 400 other ones. You kind of have to stand out. A lot of that's going to be like you, like the person that owns it, ideally,
Mhm.
or again, like the way you do or the way you do your marketing, really, or the fund itself.
All right. What's your quick take on, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, any other platforms that people should be interacting on or bang for buck? What makes the most sense?
Facebook's definitely the easiest, I would say. Again, with the prevalence of the Facebook lead form now, and it's gotten to the point where you can use an SMS like authentication, so it kills a lot of spam. That means they're going to be higher quality. So at this point, again, we never use Facebook lead forms. Bunch of garbage before. We use it with 5, 6 questions. We tee them up. Here's how much we're worth. Have you ever invested before? What's your timeline? Like, what's your liquidity? All this sort of stuff. SMS off. It's great. They're good. As that's become more and more, I guess, robust as a tool, you lean into that. And that's kind of the lowest hanging fruit. You can just step that up in a couple days, no problem. So that's number one. I'd use like the first 5,000 at least on Facebook. In fact, probably more than that, probably up to like literally 20 grand. I just go Facebook. I should say Meta. It's all the platforms. Beyond that, you have linked. Everybody's like, oh, we're doing B2B, blah, blah, blah. I want to do LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn's great. The targeting is impeccable. Like you can fine tune and target the hell out of people. You used to be able to do this on Facebook before Cambridge Analytica back in the day. So you can get in front of people. The problem is we were talking about costs when you restrict on Facebook. LinkedIn, the CPMs are like outrageous in a lot of cases. Now, they're not always high, but generally your cost per click on LinkedIn is going to be substantially higher than Facebook. So generally, like we talked about, we nail everything via the Facebook lead forms because just the unit economics are cheaper. Once we do, we can bring it over to LinkedIn. We can bring it over to Google. Google's great for search isn't always going to be there. And if it is, if you I want to search for, investing in parking lots, right? There's probably 500 other guys that have been in this space forever bidding on those. It might be $30 a click. You're going to lose your ass, right? So search is kind of tough. It's competitive, but there's other placements that they have, YouTube, Discovery, all that are really good. But you're not going to win there right away. So that's kind of a V2, with LinkedIn. And dude, I'll tell you what, like even recently, we've been dabbling with a good bit of TikTok with a lot of B2B and a lot of syndication. Yeah, especially if you nail the creative, dude. It does very, very well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get all these syndication guys out there dancing.
Again, man, nothing surprises me at all. At all. So, I mean, I'm not a TikTok guy, but they're clicking. Yeah, they're clicking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple more questions for you, but a little bit of a fun one. Let's say you get a great deal comes across your desk via your network. Somebody's like, "Hey, Reynold, I can't take this down right now." And you're like, "Man, that's maybe it's in your backyard, whatever." You're like, "I like this. I would do it." And you got to raise 10 million bucks in the next, let's say, 90 days. What are you doing? First 30 days, next 30 days, last 30 days. Who are you hiring? What are you bringing on board? The target's 10 million, 90 days. What are you doing?
I mean, the lowest hanging fruit, as far as like cost per capital is obviously like, what can you do? Like if you're the operator, what can you do? And a lot of these guys have a big network. And so the question is, how do we get in front of them? How much you think you can, how much do you think you can bring in? And we try to leverage that as much as possible. Now on the marketing side, what we're doing is like, we're not doing much of the organic social because we can do it, but that's not going to it's not going to pay dividends in 90
Yeah,
days.
we got 90 days. We got to
Yeah.
cook.
We're on a sprint. Yeah, we're on a sprint. This isn't even a marathon.
Okay, so you're hitting up warm market first.
Yeah, we're gonna leverage that network, number one. Number two, like I said, and we've done this recently for two. where they're like, hey, we'd love to get started, but we have to generate 5 million. And I think one was like 60 days. I'm like, why didn't you call me like 6 months ago? What are you doing? And honestly, the playbook is, again, it depends on their resources. If resources are not, if they're unlimited, let's say, or they're not an issue, what we're doing is and again, cost of capital is not going to be the cheapest out of the gate. Your cost of capital is going to be much higher day one than it is after you refine everything, within the ads and then your process, follow up. A lot of it's the pitch itself. It's going to be in 6 months, it's going to be much, much more refined and cheaper. But again, what we're doing is we're doing the playbook I just talked about. So we're going to go to, and again, first 20,000, we're going to Facebook. So I would just do lead forms. What we're going to do is we're going to talk to the owner, like we just talked about, talk to the owner, get the video set up. We might hire some actors. We don't have time to play around. We're going to hire some actors, get some videos. We'll dabble with some of the static stuff, some of the GIFs, and we're going to run it. The people we're going to hire, if we can, we're hiring some operational people on the back end. Primarily some people to call on these leads when they come through, because that's going to be huge. Like you talked about, if we get 100 leads a day and they can only field 20 of them or 10, which happens a lot. I mean, it happens all the time. Then what's the point of spending the money to get the 100? You know what I mean?
Well, and this brings up a great point we kind of glossed over, is the biggest oversight people make is they build their team for the capacity of leads coming in, but they don't allocate any margin for the amount of follow-up that their team is going to be needing to do. And so you start creating this like exponential compounding effort where it's like, great, there's 100 leads coming in a day. We can handle 100 leads. Awesome. But they completely negate the fact that we now need to follow up with 80 of those people. Okay. And then 3 days later, we need to follow up with 20 of those people. And like, well, now we're not hitting up 100 people a day. We're hitting up 360 people who have come into the pipeline over the last 5 days. And so have we built up enough capacity for 360 or we built up enough capacity for 100? Because those are two very different things.
Hey, you're thinking about it like a person that like plans ahead. People, they're like, most people are like, what? I called them one time. You're like, no. You got to follow up with this guy. You got to send him text. The next day, you got to send him, you got to follow. Everybody wants to take the easy road, which is like, you know how it is. They just want to get on calls, which I understand. You just want to get on calls.
Sure. Yeah, you're looking for the easy win. My background's in automotive, and so we have a much longer conversion cycle. And so we used to build this in for sales reps, where it's like, okay, how many leads did you get in the last 30 days? Right. So we'd look at a lot of data monthly, a lot of data weekly. So how many leads did we get this week? How many leads did we get this month? Okay. But if we know that we have a 4 to 6 month conversion cycle on average, well, how many leads have you got in the last 6 months? Okay. Well, we know you can't follow up with all of those. So you actually have too many leads. You don't have because most guys, the sales guy typically, or an IR guy, is going to say they don't have enough leads. And I would argue that you don't have enough frequency of touch points or enough volume of interaction.
You're not nurturing the ones you do. It's like one and done. All right, toss them. Call them, toss in the garbage. Call them, toss in the garbage. It happens all the time. But that's why, like we were talking about earlier, the sales process in the background. And dude, that's one of the things that gets like neglected so much now. Is they're like, oh yeah, I can handle everything, and I'm like, no, dude. Like, if you have a good sales process in the back end, you can double. Like, I know this happens a lot. Hey, like, we're gonna dabble, we're gonna jump in, we'll do some testing, and then we spend 5-10 grand, and they get some leads coming through, and they're like you said, they're like, we can't handle them. So the progression is always like, oh yeah, the leads are good, we're good, but we can't handle them all, so we got to hire people, and then they hire setters, which you need to do. Which, to your point earlier, I'd hire the setters, and then I'd probably hire some other people, closers, to get on the sales call and make sure they're trained up. A lot of these guys, it's a learning program. Just because they know the fund, they're not sales guys necessarily, right? A lot of them are good at sales, but they're not sales guys. They know the fund, and you hear the pitch, and you're like, yeah, that's good, but like that's not how you would sell it necessarily, right? And the follow-up is nothing. So to answer your point, we go Facebook probably. We do the lead forms. We hire some setters, hire some closers, set up nurturing sequence, automations for email and SMS, and we make sure to follow up with them, like you talked about with the sales team, like as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. What are you doing the last 30 days to try to push it across the finish line? You're like, Reynold, we're right there. We're make or break. We got another 1.5. We got 2 weeks left. Like, we have some momentum. All the infrastructure's built. We're following up. We've got leads. Like, what do you do for that final push?
Well, and this is why it's good if you're nurturing them, because if they haven't heard from you since they came in 2 months ago, and then you set up what we do, retargeting, on ads. Hey, by the way, last chance, you got this fund that's closing, blah, 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 take advantage of this. Or you send out email blasts, which is the point. Hey, by the way, this is closing. You set up some automations, trigger 30 days out, 20 days out, 15, 12, whatever it is. But if they haven't heard from you, if you haven't nurtured them, the engagement is going to be obviously piss poor. And so you're going to shoot yourselves in the foot. But the play is obviously you hit them hard with retargeting on the last 30 days. So we'll do it. Like I said, we'll do 20% of the budget on that last kind of push with retargeting ads, and then also the email sequences to squeeze it. And SMS is huge as well.
Yeah, love that. Okay, how does somebody know that they're ready to bring you on? And I guess kind of two-part. How do they know they're ready? And then what should they be doing to be a dream client for you on day one? Where, like you mentioned, hey, you should probably start doing some jabs. You should have some organic. You should be present on LinkedIn. Like, what's some of the stuff? One, how do they know they're ready for you? And then two, what should they be doing so that on day one, they hit the ground running and you're like, yes, this is going to be awesome.
Well, we've been talking about it. I mean, like we're giving like best case scenario. And so like if people are listening, like, well, I'm not doing that, maybe I'm not ready. Like, listen, like 90% of people are not actually doing this. Like when they come on, when they come on, they're like, hey, by the way, like, I got like $3 million left to hit this fund and it ends, like you said, it ends in 90 days. Like, let's go. And then they're like, oh shit, that did well. Like that was actually good. And then they're like,
Hey, maybe this works.
yeah, they're like, can we just continue it? Like after we close the fund, can we do it everyone? I'm like, yes, you can. You should, because that makes the next one easier to do. But with that being said, yeah, the dream one is, hey man, we got some funds to play with, on Facebook, on Google, on LinkedIn. You got the ability and the, I guess, the capability, the time to do some of these or test some of these videos and do some of those because those are going to perform best. And ultimately, man, I'll tell you what, like we haven't talked about this too much. Like as a marketer, the easiest thing to market is a great product. So you were saying like, how do they know if they're ready for you? If you can go sit there and tell like a friend of yours or an acquaintance or even a stranger, hey, by the way, here's my pitch. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. Then guess what? The person that's one more length away, which is the random person on Facebook seeing this, probably pretty good idea that they're gonna think the same thing. Now, if you have to sit there for 20 minutes and convince them, no chance. Like not gonna happen, right? Because you don't have that attention span. So if it's a very nuanced deal, like it might be a little tough. But again, we again, if you have good video creative and you can do kind of a tease within 30 seconds, 1 minute, I mean, you can still make it happen. It's just a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging.
How much time should the operator plan to set aside to record and then to be either interacting with you or revisiting, refining in the middle of this? Like when if I say, hey Reynold, I'm ready to get going, what should I expect in terms of amount of time per week I need to allocate on my calendar to commit to this?
Well, I mean, you have a team, I have a team. When I hire somebody, I'm like, you do the work, you save me time. That's why I'm hiring you, save me time. So again, most of the guys, they will do it if we ask. It's not a prerequisite. It's something like it's a bonus, really. I mean, like honestly, and it will and it does make the performance much, much, much better. They should do it. These guys just don't have the time. If they have the time and they're able to do it. I mean, dude, again, with your phone nowadays, you don't need professional. It's just like put your phone up, spitball. It takes like 15 minutes and you can knock out like 6 of them, 8 of them. You know what I mean? Generally, at most spends, that's pretty good for a while. You know what I mean? So it's not like they have to spend a lot of time. And it's obviously, like you said earlier, there's a margin where like this will increase your quality or this will lower your cost per lead where it's worthwhile. Again, I just want to preface like they don't have to make this in. If what we do a lot of times is we hire actors to do a lot of this stuff, and that's the fallback. But again, they're not going to spit it as well as the owner, and so it's
Yep.
definitely the fallback secondary.
Yeah, and I agree with you that they're busy and it's hard to make the time, but I would argue that the economics are there and that if we break down the math, this is something that is worth making the time for.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, 100%, without a doubt. I mean, the biggest leverage points that you're going to have are probably one of them is probably going to be the video. The other one is when you're setting up the actual fund, and I think this probably gets glossed over. This is just a kind of a pipe dream for a marketer is think about things you can do within the structure of the fund and how it's paid out, the terms, all that sort of stuff that makes it a no-brainer deal. You know what I mean? Especially if you're
Yeah.
newer or smaller, because remember, like when you're smaller, people are gonna come in, there's trust. Okay, this guy, maybe they didn't make as much. They got people in, they got people in. It makes it easier for me to sell if it's a great offer, great deal. You get people in, and every deal gets better because you have them in your system. They're already investors. They start sharing it with their friends and family. And so it snowballs. But like again, one of the things that's the easiest is like as a marketer, dude, if you have a great offer, a great product, like that's the biggest leverage point. It sells itself.
Yep. I know a guy, he used to carve out a hour a week where he would just sit on a recorded call, similar to this, where they would have, 4K high quality, and he's got a mic. It's great, whatever. You got a nice little backdrop. And he would just sit on 1 hour every week with his creative director,
Yeah.
or it would be a guy like you, and they would just go, okay, what do I need to talk about?
Yeah.
And be like,
Yeah.
hey, here's what you need to say. And he would do it 30 seconds. And then you would go, hey, that was pretty good. Let's try it again, but change the beginning.
Yeah.
And he would just force himself for 1 hour per week. And he's world class. He's a world
100%.
class
I was,
fundraiser.
I
He's a
was gonna say,
world
yeah.
class marketer. He's world
Yeah.
class on camera because he just committed 1 hour every week to going, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to retake and retake and retake. And at the end of an hour, we've got so much like variations that we can chop up. And I've seen guys do this with different like hooks. Be like, hey, we're just going to record 30 different hooks. And I'm going to have you record, the middle 5 times or 5 different variations. But now I can piece those all together, and we've got a crazy amount of varieties to go test.
But yeah, I mean that's what we do all day. We'll set up, five videos, and like, each video will have 5 hooks. And so then you put it into Facebook, and it's like, what is it, a million permutations of this? And they run with it. They're like, that
Uh-huh.
one shit, you know what I mean? Then you do the analysis and figure out like, well, yeah, that's why that one crushed it. And then you double down and do more like that or stem off that. But dude, yes, if somebody's doing an hour with a creative director, pretty much, they're going to be top 5%. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But
Do you
in
guys do
reality,
that? Will you sit with somebody if they're willing to commit the time? Will you go through that process with them, or at least maybe to get them started?
just joking. Yeah, no, of course we will, man. I'm saying like, yeah, we always want people to, to set up the video and to listen to the feedback and especially listen to again, nowadays digital marketing, dude, it's all quantitative. Like I can get in there and
Yeah.
be like, this hook produced, the hook rate was 38%. The other one was 23. I wonder why. So let's dig into it. This is why and if they listen to it, double down. I mean, dude, it's like kind of I don't want to say it's the dream client, like you said.
Yeah.
That's really the leverage points because when you're on, again, when you're on Facebook, which is the primary platform with the lead forms, your leverage point is 100% the video. And so it's all about fine tuning and refining what you're saying on there.
Well, I think it comes down to like, are you willing to learn this skill and get better at it? I think sometimes, successful operator is like, hey, I don't have time for this. But really what they're saying is like, I'm not great at this, and I don't want to have to confront the fact that I'm not great at it. And so instead, I'll send a couple of things off, whatever, versus going like, no, we're going to sit for an hour. And here's how we know we're doing it right is I'm going to interrupt you 15 times in the first 10 minutes. That's how we know we're doing it right is like, oh, nope, hold on, stop. We need to redo that.
Yeah.
Nope, stop. We need to redo that. Like, that's how, like, this is how we do sales training is when you know what the other person is supposed to say, it's like, nope, start over. You stumbled over your words there. I don't believe you anymore. You just lost all credibility. Nope, go back. Like, that's how we know we're doing good, like, role play
Yeah.
is, hey, I'm going to interrupt you 100 times. That's how we know this went well.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
if
mean,
we're not,
that's like a coach, like when you're talking about like golf, like you probably
yeah.
use this
Well, that's
coach.
like to me, that's like the role of the creative director. Is like, hey, I'm directing and
Yeah.
helping coach you in this.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like like when you have a swing coach, or you hit it, and then you get a oh, that one tailed left. You pulled it. What did I do? Oh, you did this. Like, ah, okay, got it. Hit it again. Oh, you sliced it. What did you do? And the more you figure out why it wasn't, you didn't hit it properly, you can then calibrate yourself and hit a perfect shot. It's the same thing with this. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you did wrong. Don't do that. This is what you did over here. This is why it didn't end up well. It's the same stuff. It's like almost like a built-in coach. I mean, it's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
clearly a much better golfer than I am.
Like, that's funny. I did it once. You know how golf is, man. It's like if you don't play all the time, every weekend or every couple weekends, like you lose it. I got 2 kids, man. I don't get out that often anymore. So I was really good at one point. I could hang. I was doing well. I don't know about it anymore, man. It's tough.
Man, dude, thank you so much for being on. How can people reach out to you if they're like, man, Reynold, I think I'm ready. I want to have a conversation, or man, I would at least maybe just like to pick your brain. I know I'm going to have a deal at the end of the year. What should I be doing now to get prepared to bring you on? How do they reach out to you? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, so you can go to our website. The agency website is infinitymediala.com, and you can take a look there. One of the other things we have going for us, we got a new site called Accredable. It's accredible.io. And on that, more or less, if they reach out, we do actually have we got a little special going on for the next couple weeks. I don't know when this is going out. If it goes out and somebody sees this and it's not there, just have them reach out to me. We more or less have a special we're running. It's 10 accredited investor leads for $500. So what we'll do is you'll get.
How the heck do you do that?
So we don't make money.
You just have 10 accredited investors that you're just like, hey, here you go. I'm going to hand these 10 to you.
Yeah, exactly. We got a Rolodex. We're like, just play this part real quick. We'll cut you in on it. No, so I mean, dude, again, it's like this is the whole thing about like this is
I mean, you can't be making money on that.
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying. But like again, you have to be like, in my point, like again, my credibility. I'm like, listen, we will lose money on the deal to show you that we can do what we say we do. So we will lose money on it. There's not many people that are getting accredited leads under $50. If you have a killer product, sure, you might be able to. But I mean, we might have these guys come in at like $100 a pop. And generally what we'll do is we'll look for the baseline. Okay, it comes in at $100 pop. Everybody's different offering, whatever, different locations, some special, I can only do Florida, whatever it is. We'll see where that nets out. And then generally we'll put a margin on it. So we'll put 25, 50% on top of it, and then we'll run the ads. We pay for everything, and then you just pretty much pay per lead. And that's how it works. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. I'll be sure to, so what I'll do is I'll link those in the notes with both those websites so that people can reach out to you. Dude, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. So
Dude,
I mean, hopefully we don't lose too much money on it.
hopefully
We
this
might
doesn't go
shut quick.
viral and send you
Yeah,
too
we
many
might shut
people.
down quick. We'll see.
I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, that was
Oh
wicked.
man. Dude, thank you so much for being on. Appreciate it. I feel like we covered a ton of good stuff, ton of good insight. Really appreciate your feedback. I think this is the kind of stuff that a lot of guys think of as a nice to have, not a have to have. They want the leads, but they don't necessarily want to do the work or have the conversations behind the scenes that actually make it happen. So appreciate you, man. Appreciate your insights. Thanks for being on.
No, I appreciate it, man. Everybody wants a shortcut, but yeah, you got to do the work, man. So
Yep.
thanks for having me on, brother.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Holy smokes, that was jam packed. I love Reynolds' perspectives when it comes to testing creative and obviously, hey, best case scenario, but bar minimum, this is what we got to do. If you want to check out more about him, his services, his team, what he can offer, we'll have the links below. And if you need help with any of the sales side of things, reach out to me so we can help you build out some of the follow-up processes and make sure that your team is actually executing on all these leads that Reynolds helping you get.